Early intervention starts with early identification of what the issues are and concerns are for the child, and it's putting in place programs and services that will meet the needs of the child in a timely way, but also take into account what the family requires to support this child.
Early childhood intervention is, in Australia, is quite a big service sector. It's around the sorts of services that are useful to children and to families in those early years, so 0 up to school entry. It might involve consultations perhaps with a range of professionals. You might see a psychologist, a speech therapist, an occupational therapist. Lots of teachers are involved in early intervention, and they will be working with you to talk about what your concerns about your child's development is and what things you would like your child to be learning and what you would like some help with. It might, with a little one, it might be helping them to learn to sit so that they can then reach for things, something like that. Or it might be about communication.
Often it will be around having an assessment and then having a discussion around where the child's trajectory can be, and then working on what sort of interventions would help to achieve the goals that you might set and create a plan, and then continue to review that to see how the child is progressing.
It's about what is it that your goals are and what support do you need from the specialists, if you like, at the centre, and how can you help your child use those skills or practice those skills in their everyday life.
Early intervention works best when there is a partnership between the family and the service offering that intervention, and what that means is that the parents' skills, abilities and knowledge about their child are taken into account and come to the mix of intervention strategies that are used. So when parents can use some of the strategies that the child might be learning in the early intervention service at home, then of course that strengthens the effect for the child. Some interventions work better than others. Evidence is accumulated over the years using strong scientific method, and practitioners in the field should know what that evidence is and should be able to share that with parents.
The professionals that are usually involved with early childhood intervention is speech, occupational therapy, physiotherapy, psychology, and in some cases some others around music therapy or other ways that can support children in early intervention settings. Sometimes early intervention is provided within a centre where you would actually take a child to a centre and receive the therapy support that you might need. In other circumstances, it can be a therapist who can come to your home.
I think one of the important things about working with a whole lot of professionals is being conscious that it's the professional's job to support you and your child, to share with you the specialist knowledge that they have, but to listen to you, your concerns and the needs of you and your family.
One of the things that I worried about for so long was this physical inability he seemed to have. He resisted doing anything to put weight through his legs or to move around. If he didn't have to move around, he would not move around. He knew that his siblings or somebody would bring him something, and they did. But the early intervention taught me that I had to be a little bit stronger for him. It would be very easy to be, not complacent, that's not the right word, but let him just lay there and do it in his own time. So I guess in early intervention, one of the things, we called it the Hannibal Lecter. We had to strap him into kind of this standing frame, and so that he had to put his weight through his legs, and I was in tears. I still remember that. He was only two and a half at the time, and we were in tears, and then we took pictures of him, and now we can laugh about it. Yeah, Charlie, here's you in your standing frame. But I wouldn't have done that had I not been pushed by somebody, the professionals in early intervention, who said this will help him, put the weight through his legs. So some of those things that you wouldn't think of, and then down the line, yes, he'd start walking. So it did work. So I think the earlier intervention helped me to just push do things, challenge him in a way that, or all of us in a way that we would not have thought to do.
We know that in the first 3 years particularly, children's experiences influence their brain development. That's for all children. So it's important to have lots of positive learning experiences, positive emotional experiences for children in that time. And that's why the push to encourage families to seek early intervention services as soon as they possibly can.
If you can really take advantage of this window of time that we have in early intervention and really catch up where they've missed a step at that point, that as they get older, the amount of support that they need doesn't have to be as intense because they've done it all in those early years. It's never too late to start to change things. We know that brain development goes on until early adulthood. So even if your child's not diagnosed till they're starting school, it's not too late. You've done lots of stuff that is really important already, and now you'll be getting some direction on how to go from here on.
Choosing an early intervention provider is an active process where parents think about what their child needs and what their goals are for their child and their family, and then carefully examining what that service has to offer.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Take a list of questions into the interview or appointment and don't leave until you've got some response to each of them.
I guess one of the challenges for families too is that there's no one central point to find all this information. So it's a little bit like a treasure hunt in a way.
Families find out about early intervention services through a range of sources. The diagnostician, the person who makes a diagnosis, can often give them important information about what early services are available, but there are organisations that are disability specific that would have a range of options to share with parents. Local government's also a good source of information, as are state government disability services. Those services can be accessed through the internet or by telephone.
There's different types of funding available through the government for support in early interventions. In some instances, funding is available to the child, and you can then choose what sort of therapist and where the therapist might be to suit your needs. Other intervention support is actually funded. Programs are funded, and you need to access them. And so in some cases there are choices there, but invariably we find that there's more demand than there is availability. So it's best to, in the early stages, when you're talking to the early intervention managers in each state, to put forward exactly what you're feeling that you need, and put in the best request that you can, that fits with your family, and try and come up with the best outcome.